I am in the totally feral mood to yap about my OC for about an hour while working on an illustration of them. So, hi, hey, hello. If you're new here, my name is Rain. If you're not new here, welcome back. I really appreciate you stopping on by to my little corner of the internet. And in today's video, we are going to be chatting about my OC Eris. I haven't talked about them on my channel in a really long time. While I work on the start of an illustration of them that I'm hoping to finish by the end of next week, the week after next at the absolute latest. So if you want to draw along with me, be sure to do it. Feel free to tell me about it in the comments down below. I love when you guys get creative alongside me. Get cozy, get comfortable, because I'm going to be yapping for a minute. So let's just get into it. Let me know if you guys liked the weird little animation name thingy that I put up at the start of the video. I'm testing out being more fun in my life, and that was an idea on how to be more fun. If you hate it, you'll never see it again. So, but I'll start talking about Eris. So Eris, and that's Eris, they are the reincarnated kind of vessel thing for Eris, the Greek god of chaos and disorder. So Eris effectively is an entity, a person who died and / was dying, and in those final moments the god Eris was also being confronted with basically the imminent death or probability of death, and they, as an effort to save themselves, threw their body / kind of consciousness partially into Eris. So basically Eris was given a second chance at life, but as a vessel for the god. Basically like a self-preservation tactic for the god, and Eris is just along for the ride, didn't really consent to the situation, and I don't really think that they exist simultaneously together in the headspace. I think that more so they are a fusion of who they both were prior to the moment where they became one. I don't think that there was enough of each of them in that final moment for them to exist as two fully separate entities. If anything, I think it would be a little bit closer to a Jekyll and Hyde situation where they are like two halves of one whole, or Eris the god is like almost a separate kind of version of Eris as an individual who is perhaps just a differently motivated. So if you think of the Jekyll and Hyde dynamic and how it occurred and the plot of the story, basically what happened was Jekyll, the scientist, wanted to find a way to eradicate those carnal, vile desires, the cruelty of humanity from the self. Basically find a way to pull people away and remove evil. And in doing that, he created Hyde. And Hyde is basically the pure embodiment of every vile, disgusting thought and desire that Jekyll has ever had. And so basically, if I mostly know Jekyll and Hyde through the musical, I need to reread the book, but the musical is so good. The gothic thriller musical. The singer, I can't think of his full name, but the singer who does Jekyll and Hyde is named Andrew. That version's the version, guys, okay? I was in the top 100 listeners on Apple Music for that musical, okay? I'm sure that's not saying a lot. I'm sure I would like to think that there are not as many people who are as feral for that musical as I am. And when I say feral for that musical, I think I only like 5 songs of 20. So I was in the top 100 listeners for listening to like 5 songs out of the entire musical. Okay? Like, I have a problem. Okay? But it's that one. Okay? It's that version. Not the weird, I think it's 2006 like heavy metal wannabe rock version. I have special thoughts for that music. I can make an entire video talking about why I think that version is just some sort of weird alternate universe crime, but that's irrelevant. How this relates to Eris is basically Hyde is described in the musical as pure evil. It is every evil desire that Jekyll ever had or craved. But the morality and the ability of like self-restraint is what prevented that from actually happening, basically. You know, it's every thought you have that you probably shouldn't have and you stop yourself from doing anything about, right? It's those thoughts that is Hyde. Hyde is all of those thoughts as one person, which is terrifying. I've talked about it several times on my channel, but I have OCD, and one component of OCD is like intrusive thoughts, and those thoughts can be terrible thoughts that you just like don't want to have, and they can be kind of like consuming, right? Like, you can have those thoughts without really actually having any interest in committing to them, but they just like occur, right? They just like pop in your brain and you're like, whoa, God, Jesus, what has happened to me? Holy shit, right? Like, that's how intrusive thoughts can happen. So like, I can't even imagine how much worse Hyde would have been if Jekyll had like really severe OCD. Like, that would have just, that is the next new age book that needs to be made, okay? That one. But that's an aside. I think that is kind of the dynamic. If anything, that Eris and Eris have they don't have separate names. They're Eris and Eris, okay? But basically, if anything, I think Eris, the god of chaos, might almost come out more in moments of like extreme stress and basically engage in and commit to extreme chaos, or like perform or instigate extreme chaos, right? But I don't think that they are separate enough to even truly have that Jekyll and Hyde dynamic where they are two different people who are capable of like truly fighting and arguing with each other. If anything, I would think of it as kind of like a bit of like a mental break for a minute, where Eris kind of loses touch with herself as like a more humanoid entity and will instigate something and then like come out of it a little bit later and regret it when they're dealing with the aftermath of that decision. It's like they have a compulsion towards chaos and disorder that they can't truly control entirely, but they don't know how to stop it, if anything. It's almost more like an unfiltered OCD thought than it is them as two separate entities inside of one head. And the reason I designed it that way is because, one, I don't like the kind of split personality representation that occurs when you have a lot of these storylines and devices. No hate to people who try and do it ethically and who like try and create these storylines. A big part of my channel and my art is disability advocacy, and I don't want to create an inauthentic or harmful portrayal of a kind of inner voice slash like separate autonomous being kind of thing without having it more heavily researched. And I designed Eris as the incarnate when I was pretty young, and I just didn't know how to approach and navigate doing that research, and so I just was like, nope. There's a lot of dialogue, of course, around like Jekyll and Hyde and it being a personality disorder and things like that. I don't think that that was the original intention of the author. I really do think it was trying to create a good representation is not the word I want. A good kind of like visual juxtaposition between our deepest, most unhinged desires and thoughts, and also kind of like our morality and what we know to be the societal values. I mean, like, Hyde basically curb stomps a child. Like, he's terrible. He's a terrible person, okay? He's a horrible being. And if it is to be portrayed or seen as them being a multiple personality situation, I think that is like a really horrible and harmful portrayal. But I think it was intended to be a metaphor for these different kind of, how should I say, like desires and conflicting emotions. And that's why they quite literally are two different people in appearance, right? They are not two people in one body that stays the same. Like when Hyde takes over, the body physically changes to manifest and present as a hateful, decrepit, little stinky hairy dude. Like, that's how the book does it. It's like he's some short, grumpy bro. And so that's part of the reason why I don't think that was the intention. But I was inspired by The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde when trying to, and by the way, yeah, I know you can visually see me struggling relentlessly with this hand. Okay, it gets fixed eventually. Off camera, I took photos with my phone and I referenced them. But like, we're not going to talk about it, okay? Like, this is it. I've acknowledged it. The hands are bad. I fix it. I promise. Kind of. Sort of. We're not talking about it, okay? No one needs to know. But, that was not a musical joke, I swear. But, anyway, as I was saying, I was inspired by, but wanted to make sure that these two people kind of didn't exist in any sort of harmful way. I think if anything, it is more so an exploration of how I sometimes have a hard time managing my own OCD compulsions. I was undiagnosed when I designed Eris years ago originally, and I think that this was supposed to be originally a self-exploration for how mentally and emotionally challenging it was to not understand why sometimes I would have the overwhelming intense desire to do things that I knew were not safe. Well, not safe for myself, right? Or I would be like, I need to do this thing right now or the world is going to blow up, right? And I had lived my whole life with these thought processes, but they were becoming more and more consuming as I got older. I experienced a couple of things that have left me with PTSD, and I started having paranoid delusions when I was pretty young, where I would kind of feel the overwhelming, intense sensation that something bad was going to happen, and it would completely consume me, like mind, body, and soul, and I would become inconsolably convinced that like this horrible event was going to happen and I was going to die, right? Like, it was a very overwhelming and mentally distressing process. And I think a big part of creating Eris was me trying to create a sort of mythical and, I mean, equally distressing, but like a reason that made sense to me, right? Like something that had a cause that could kind of relieve the like guilt and fear that came from being like, I'm going to get murdered in the grocery store if I get out of the car, right? Like, they were never sensical. And I still have these paranoid feelings despite now being medicated and in therapy and having the necessary resources. I'm an adult now, so I can, advocate for myself and acquire the help that I needed. But at the time when I was younger and I was trying to explore what was wrong, I think that was what I was pursuing a character design about. I was trying to create the feeling and the idea of a reason, basically. And I think that Eris has evolved into something and someone entirely different now that I am aware of kind of my situation, and I'm able to kind of think and understand that these thought processes are not normal, but they're normal for somebody with OCD, or they're not uncommon. And I have the necessary tool set to like grapple with and identify these thought processes and then circumvent the exacerbation or worsening of them. And Eris has since evolved into her own kind of entity while she still struggles with Eris as a kind of compulsion and a kind of overwhelming desire to commit chaos and cause problems. And while she attracts chaos towards her in a way that is like abnormal, like Murphy's Law type stuff, right? Well, it's a very Murphy's Law situation. Like, Murphy's Law being anything that can go wrong will go wrong, no matter how like prepared you are for the situation and no matter how hard you try to make sure everything goes right. Murphy's Law says it'll still go wrong somehow, no matter how hard you try, right? Which is very much Eris's situation. And while they'll feel inclined towards then like instigating chaos, they as a character have also gone through their own growth journey where they're better managing the powers of the goddess that is now one with them and being able to better kind of manifest and hone magic and not cause problems and control these desires and better manage frustrations and irritations and not just like blow things up. Which like sometimes that's just what you want to do, right? You want to just blow things up. And I think Eris is also a cathartic character in that sense because they will do it with no hesitation. They're like, oh no, problem occurred, explosives. Problem occurred, guess I just need to light it on fire, right? And that is something about Eris that I really like about them, and they have that cathartic feeling to them for me in that sense. So I'm very much happy with them as a character and how they exist kind of separately from what I originally designed them to do. So I think it's time to talk about the sketch for a minute and then get back into some more of their kind of like character quirks and character personality aspects. But let's talk about the sketch for a second. The sketch itself is mostly about the movement and the overall kind of feeling that something is happening. Like just kind of like the creation of a sense of something interesting, right? the hands are kind of like in opposition to each other, where she's going to be creating a ball of magic. And basically, it's supposed to feel like an action shot. Like the magic is like pushing her hair back, sending the one ear kind of flying up. I eventually fixed the tie, so that's also kind of flapping a little bit. And the leg is pulled up to kind of like emulate like a fighting stance, like she's about to like step forward and hurl this at you. And it's supposed to be a piece that's like mostly about the movement. Now, my biggest regret in this process is that I didn't scan the sketch so I could do it digitally. I wish I just left the sketch as it was in the sketchbook and digitally kind of like fixed up the piece, because I hate doing traditional lighting. I really do. And so I already knew there was going to be a digital component to the piece, because I hate doing my intense lighting traditionally. And because her face is actually like really small in this piece for some reason. I don't know what it is, but because of how like momentous their hair is, it's really hard to like actually capture the details in the face and keep the hair like wisping around and covering the like having the movement that I wanted, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And so I wish I had preserved the sketch. I really do. I plan to re-sketch it, and I might do that by just tracing over the finished piece and kind of trying to capture the initial lines using my light box. But I think it would help to also just clean up all of the bad eraser marks. But ultimately, I have not been having fun coloring this piece. It does not get finished in this video. I'm still not done with it. And I cut the video off like multiple days ago in terms of actually like working on this piece. It is not going well, and I think I need to make an entire separate video on the actual challenges that I'm having rendering this piece and like all of the decision making that I'm doing wrong. But basically, like, I'm just having so much difficulty with the lighting, the movement, and how I want everything to come together. And I feel like I need to also do a video on the paint pens that I use, because I have just run into so many issues recently with my paint pens. Like, this is why I didn't make one when I first got my Arctic markers, which are the primary paint pens I use, because use case speaking, nothing is like awful out the box. I'm kidding. Like, things are awful out the box, but like an art supply is probably not going to be like horrible out the box. But like, what is the longevity of the supply? What is the use case? Like, what is the repurchasability of a supply as well? And I'm just running into so many issues with every single brand that I have used that I am like having more and more issues every piece I do, and getting more and more frustrated with my supplies, because they are separating. Even when I shake them, they're separating. Paint isn't dripping all the way down to the tip. One of my pens decided to like be 3 different colors the other day. Like, when it separates in the tip, even when you shake it, the paint doesn't just like flow very like well to the new end. And it takes a long time for it to get back to that color when it starts separating in the nib. Some of my paint pens are just not paint, even though I shake them every time. They're more of an oil. It's kind of like putting highlighter over the paint pens, and they're kind of like changing in their actual texture. And so the use case is getting more and more difficult. And then with some of the brush nibs, I'm having a harder time getting finer details over time, like they're fraying. And that I don't think is entirely user error. There's room for user error. But as I've been working on this piece, I have just been having a lot of issues where my paint pens aren't the colors I want them to be. over time, even when I have ones that I can pump. So the Arctic markers can't be pumped, but I have the Grabby acrylic markers and the Ohuhu acrylic markers, both the ones that can and can't be pumped. Even when I like pump out the marker, sometimes they're changing colors while I'm actively working with them, no matter how well I shake them. And so I've been having a lot of issues with the colors. Also, they've been reactivating each other more and more recently as I build them up. So I mentioned that they're kind of changing texture. And when I first got them, they dried down a lot more matte than they do now. I will have to pull up my sketchbook to do side by sides, but they're definitely getting a glossier finish to them than they did when I originally bought and started using them. So I've just been having a lot of issues where it's like reactivating and smearing funny, and like they're not as opaque as they used to be, no matter how hard I try. And so it's creating a muddy look that they didn't used to have, because where they used to lay over and almost completely cover or completely cover, they are now like blotchy. It's almost like it's like a watercolor more. Like a lot of the colors are working like a watercolor instead of a paint now. And I don't know if that's just because they're running out, but some of them is happening with pens that I like never use, like colors I rarely use. And so I've just been having a lot of issues with this piece, and I wish I preserved the sketch because the paint pens are just causing me issues that they haven't before. And I really like the sketch, and I'm going to have to do just so much digital cleanup with this one that I wouldn't have had to do in a normal world. I had to do digital cleanup no matter what because I wanted to do the lighting digitally, because I wanted to use a bloom effect. I didn't really want to like manually render the glow. And then I'm gonna have to like redefine the eyes. The lashes are kind of like getting in the way. The paint pens are causing issues where it's like muddy looking on the skin. So I'm going to be re-evening a lot of the textures. And then I really like the way a noise effect looks on my pieces. So I was going to add a noise texture digitally just because I like it personally. So there were digital touch-ups no matter what, based on the sketch and what I want for it, with the glow and the magic and the background I want, because I don't work with real paint, and especially not oil paint. It is harder to get those kind of like glowy feelings. So I don't work with oil paint or acrylic paint. I'm not really good at it. I'm more of a gouache person. So creating that glow effect in a sketchbook that isn't meant for water-based pigments was just not really going to happen probably. And I wanted a maroon background because I wanted it to complement the red, but the purple and the green would also look nice with it. So yeah, it's a long process, and this piece has just been causing me so many issues. I probably could have had it done this week if my paint pens were opaque and not a pain, but it's just how it is. I have had to redo the face like 5 times because it just keeps reactivating weird, and it's almost like it's absorbing funny too. Like the paint pen is absorbing the paint pen I layer over it, because it'll look different from when I close my sketchbook to when I open it again, and I'm like, what is wrong with me? Did I really just leave it looking this awful? And when I have a piece drying, because the paint pens are wet, and they dry pretty quickly when they're not sitting on top of a less than absorbent, I don't know how to articulate it, but like it's glossy. Like the feeling of the paint pen has a glossy finish to it. It's almost like I put a like a finish, like a sealant over it, but I didn't. And so I have to leave my sketchbook open for ages to dry and know that it's dry so that my pages don't stick together, because I really don't want to have to repaint anything because my page is stuck. Like I have to do enough repainting as is. I do not need my pages sticking together and uplifting my stuff as well. So it's been a pain, but overall, I want this to be an action pose. She's about to hurl magic at you. The glow, when I do the digital touch-ups, are going to be like bouncing against her face and all of that. So basically it's supposed to kind of draw intrigue to the ball of magic more than anything. And then secondarily, I want the light on her face to be the second biggest focal point, and then how it will model against her ears. She has piercings that I'm adding at the very, very end just because the paint pen process makes it easier to do it that way. Same thing with the fingernails. The hands look weird. They're going to look weird the entire video. I'm not adding the fingernails until I'm done because I want to do it in a nice opaque micron pen. I want black nails. And then I will just add a light highlight or maybe a lime green or a purple for the magic over the nails to blend it in a little bit better. But I like a stark black nail. When I do traditional line art, like a proper full-blown line art piece, like you're going to color it like a coloring book, I almost always fill in the nails. I really like it to be thick black. I really don't want it to create intrigue, and I don't want it to be completely not there either, you know? I don't want it to be something to capture any detail, and I'm gonna make them a bit longer than the finger, so any issues with the tips of the fingers I kind of just ignore because it's just not gonna be visible. Like, the nail's gonna cover it, so I don't really worry about the tips of the fingers either a lot of the time, but they're gonna look weird the whole time. That's why. If you were like looking at it and you're like, why does this feel so wrong, and you couldn't figure it out, there's no fingernails. There's no fingernails, and the hand is like pointing towards you, the one closest to us. So it's the back of the thumb. So it is really a weird, funky looking thumb with no nail. It's super awkward, but I promise it's for good reason. I didn't forget it. I just didn't want to cover back over it. Also, I don't like to render around the finger. I get kind of distracted by it, and so just like not having it in at the time really helps. So, issues with the sketch. I've mentioned a couple of times now in my videos that I got critiqued that my art is too abstract. Not abstract in the traditional abstraction movement kind of sense, but in the you have to make assumptions kind of way. My art isn't clear. It's not telling you everything it needs to. I don't know how I feel about the sentiment because in my head, I feel like my art is pretty clear. I don't really know what I'm doing to make people not like know what I'm trying to convey. I don't know if that makes sense. Like maybe it's because I explain my pieces and the people who are saying this haven't heard me talk about my art, but like from my standpoint, my art, I feel like it's pretty straightforward. Like, I don't think I'm particularly creative or intelligent in my creativity. So, I don't know, it's weird. But for clarity's sake, I'm now working really hard to critique my art better so that I can identify areas where I could have been more clear and more concise to create better readability for viewers, right? And people like looking at the art, right? So, in terms of like readability issues, the biggest one is because her pose is so compact, and I have this huge issue. It's my biggest issue in the entire world. I always put characters too far to one side. I never center things. I can't do it. I'm physically incapable of doing it. So, because I'm physically incapable of centering anything ever, and it's literally like a plague upon my life, like literally cannot do it for some reason, her pose is kind of compact to the left side of the page, and because of that, the bell sleeves and the oversized sweater dress and the magic all being condensed in that one space makes it kind of hard to understand what's happening in the sketch too. So without even adding color and lighting and dynamics to it, it really kind of makes it hard to understand what's happening. And so when I redo this sketch one day, I'm torn on doing it on a separate piece of paper and not doing it, like I'm considering not tracing over the finished piece when I'm done with it. I'm considering like referencing it and then redoing it separately. I'm not sure yet, but no matter what, I'm going to revise it to pull the chest back more. Like, the body's still going to be turned, but to create more space between the back arm and the body so that the magic is centered in the negative space between the body and the arm and kind of like overlapping just the arm, not the torso as well, so you can better see the defined shape of where the body is supposed to be going. I'm optimistic that that will help resolve whatever issues are happening clarity-wise, and it's going to be worse because of my art style. My art style does make clarity a lot more difficult because I'm reliant on a lot of super saturated colors contrasted by incredibly harsh black lines, and my depth is created through that vibrancy. So I'm not entirely sure what the readability issues will be when it's done, but I want to do a little video or a snippet of a video where I discuss our readability issues and do like a self-critique. I think next week's video is going to be me finishing last week's piece and this week's piece, and then like showcasing like the finished products. And that will probably include the digital touch-up as well. Really depends on how fast I work because these are driving me bonkers. Dang it, I'm losing my mind on these two illustrations. Like, the big sketchbook makes me want to do finished art, but it's also like bigger than the paper I usually work on for small, or like my big art is usually not this big, and so I'm like just like confused. Like, my brain is just not quite activating. If I feel really clumsy. Clumsy is the word to describe like how I felt working on these two full illustrations. So maybe we just need a sketchbook session week soon. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Returning to Eris's like actual character design, they are a character that is really hard for me to draw for some reason. The sketch, easy. The like actual like design from a like silhouette standpoint, easy. The outfit, easy. Everything, fine. As soon as it comes to coloring, Eris goes out the window. Vanished. Eradicated. I am so bad at rendering white hair. It is literally like the bane of my existence. White hair and magic. What did I make? A white-haired magical OC. What was I thinking? It was a horrible idea. I really don't know what I was doing. Like, the red streak looks so good with the red eyeliner, the red tie. She has a triadic color. I should have mentioned this earlier. Eris is she, they pronouns. And so when I say they, I'm not talking about the plural of the Erises. It's just like a pronoun thing. Like, I'm of the belief that like the gods, Greek, Norse, Roman, and all of that, would probably be pretty neutral on like identity and expression. So every time I have a god or godly or demigod OC, so Thanatos, Hypnos, Loki, and Eris, they all just are they, and then whatever general gender presentation they're assuming. Eris is always femme, but Loki has a feminine and a masculine and a non-binary form, and then Hypnos and Thanatos are more masculine, but I just use they for all godly characters because it just makes sense to my tiny brain. I'm like, yeah, they probably are like whatever up there. So it's like a neutrality thing. Anyway, but so the red in their hair, it looks super nice with their tie. Their eyeliner is perfect. Really good. I really like the little simple touch of red. But the rest of them is a really neutral color palette because I use purple and green for their magic, right? And so when they're standalone, they are red hair. Nope. Let me think. Red streak, green eyes, and then usually a gray sweater. I do get a little bit more snazzy with their sweaters sometimes, so sometimes they'll be wearing like kind of like a pant, like a pinstripe or checkerboardy pant and a like vest with the black undershirt, and the vest will be like a gray color. But it's like a knit vest. It's not like a dress shirt kind of thing, but generally like it's a pretty neutral color palette. And I usually make them paler than this, but having them more orange toned in color with like the marker I chose is going to help me kind of like balance the saturation when I'm working digitally. So that's why I chose that. Generally though, most of my characters, because they are dead, are unnaturally pale outside of specific lighting conditions. Like Thanatos is pale because they're the god of like escorting souls, so they're in the underworld a lot of the time. Hypnos doesn't leave the house because they're sleeping all the time. Eris is undead. Nameless is undead. And Vivian is an immortal vampire science-y entity. He's not a vampire. Basically, he tried to save his wife from a chronic illness, from dying from a chronic illness, and accidentally became immortal but couldn't save her. And so he lives by Victorian beauty standards. I don't know what's up with him. He probably turns like cherry red if the sun glances through the window and he melts. I'm partially joking. He's on the tanner side usually. Eris makes him go outside a lot, but he's the only character that I have that's like not canonically dead. So he's the only one who actually adopts a skin tone that is anything other than dead outside of natural lighting, which really just says that I need more living OCs that are like alive, like capable of enjoying their life beyond being dead, you know? Like I need more OCs that aren't in their afterlife already, like kind of giving them all sad ways to live, basically. But needless to say, the orange is to make the digital rendering better and easier for me, so that's more or less where I'm going with that. I made sure to swatch a red gray, like a red tinted gray, an RG, to be better balanced with the red base pencil, and then also for the red in her hair. I don't really know how red gray this gray ended up being, to be honest. It looked not particularly fun. I think it might have been more intelligent to go with a really light cool gray or a green gray and then lay the red gray over it. But ultimately, Eris's only true colors to them are the red accents and the green eyes. Other than that, they're a skin tone and just a usually very basic sweater and white hair, white ears, and then their piercings. So they're pretty simple, and I really like that simplistic component to them because, one, it makes them really easy for other people to draw if they ever want to customize them, to give them fun outfits without worrying about the color theory, but also so that the magic can be the more important component of them in terms of like color and like pizzazz, you know? I can accent their character whenever I want with magic to imply some sort of further emotion without worrying about it contrasting or being awkward with the rest of the scene and the rest of the color palettes, right? Basically, if I want their eyes to glow when they're angry, I'm able to do that without worrying it's going to clash with their outfit of the day. Eris is a very simple creature in nature, and I think that comes from living such a chaotic and stressful life. They don't need any extra complexities in their day-to-day existence, and that includes thinking at all. They don't want to think. They were an academic when they were alive, a scientist. Basically, all of my OCs that aren't gods are scientists. Dang it. I'm not fun. I'm sorry. Everyone's a scientist and everyone's dead. But they were a scientist when they were alive. They're still a scientist. They work with Vivian. They're in the same universe. Vivian, Nameless, and Eris all exist together. They're a trio. basically the chaotic one, the dumb one, and the mom of the group is Vivian. So constantly making sure these two idiots do not kill themselves. He is over them. And since we're talking about more of my OCs, Vivian's name is Vivian. I've had this question asked like twice, and never on YouTube, but I've been asked this question about why I have a boy named Vivian. My deceased great grandpa, not grandpa, my deceased great granduncle was named Vivian, so he's named after him. So there we go. And he mostly goes by Viv and V, but essentially, they're a trio, and they do science stuff and magic together. Like, I think the best way to articulate Vivian's role in it is he makes chemical concoctions. Like, he's an alchemist, not a magician. Eris is more of a magical entity. Like, their science background was not in chemistry, it was in the life sciences. They were an environmentalist. Nameless was a botanist because she was supposed to be my self-insert OC years ago, and I never changed her career field when I revamped her and reworked her entirely. So she does plant magic, okay? Like, I'm boring, okay? I like plant magic. I like plants. I do plant zombies. I do scientists, dead people. All of my stuff is dead people and science and plants. How fun. But needless to say, I can have Eris's magic be a form of self-expression without ever worrying about anything. And frankly, like, partially, I think because they were supposed to be an outlet when I created them, the simplicity in their design is also a testament to, like, the simplicity of how you, like, want life to be when your brain is so busy. But also, like, I'm a creature of pure habit. So, like, when you think about it, it's like putting on the same general outfit every day and not having to think about it is a very cathartic experience. And for someone like Eris, who is probably going to blow up something, it's convenient. And knowing Eris, if they had to make fashion decisions, somehow Murphy's Law would strike and everything would go wrong, right? Like, everything catches on fire, magical outburst, rodents in the closet, like, something would happen that would just make the idea of being fashionable 30 billion times more inconvenient and worse. So it also makes sense from that standpoint. And then I just love, okay? It is my thing, guys, okay? I love it. I love a sweater dress and thigh-high combo. That's just it, okay? I don't have any defense, okay? There is no additional thought process behind it, okay? Sweater dress, thigh-highs, and bell sleeves are like my 3 favorite things. I'm not putting any more effort into it, okay? I love it. That's it. Like, I don't have any self-defense. I don't have any critical analysis of it. It makes me happy. I like the design. I like the way it looks. I like to wear it. That's it. I wear bell sleeves in, like, all of my videos, guys. Also, the bell sleeves leave a lot of, like, room for more chaos. Like, I don't know about you guys, but, like, I am a, like, magnet for, like, self-danger. If you've been around a while, you know I have, like, a tan, whitish version of this green bell sleeve sweater. You haven't seen it as much recently because I lit the sleeve on fire while making mac and cheese. I don't have any words for myself. It was an indefensible experience. I didn't know the burner was still hot. My sleeve is slightly charred on the left side. So it's just also, like, fun. It's fun to be able to insert experiences where the sleeves cause additional issues, and then to have this be, like, the one thing Eris won't compromise on. It's like, no. I have forgone every single piece of enjoyment in my life. I get to have the flappy sleeves, okay? Like, I have to have one simple pleasure, and it is the flappy sleeves, right? Very much just like child at heart to an extent, despite all the chaos and the misgivings and being undead. It also makes sense for them to seek simple comforts in things like an outfit, right? So, and I don't know, flappy sleeves just make me happy. So, I like to draw them. I really like giving people bell sleeves. I really like giving people crop tops, and I really like oversized sweaters. Like, they're the crux of my art. Same face syndrome, same clothes syndrome, guys. That is my real issue. That is my artistic crime. And frankly, I'm not going to defend myself. I have no self-defense. That's just the way of life. But returning to, actual, character design decisions, I envision that a large part of Eris is the kind of lack of saturation to them. I very much kind of picture them being desaturated as an individual because they're weighed down by the stress and the kind of responsibility that comes with being the incarnate of a god. And so having them be desaturated in terms of their actual physical components, it lends to the narrative then that their magic is the most lively part of them and a large part of their autonomy and their kind of self-expression. And that is additionally why I have them with white hair specifically, because it's such a neutral state of being. White is the complete absence of color, similar to black. It is the absence of color, just in the opposite direction. Having it that way allows for the hair and the ears to catch with the glow of the emotion and the magic and to emulate whatever it is that is being projected in that capacity without detracting from it. Which creates all of these additional issues with me not knowing how to render white hair. But in my opinion, just because I suck at it, even though I've spent all of these years with this OC, doesn't mean that I should change it for the ease of illustration. I just need to draw her more until I'm not ass at it. I just need to be a better OC haver and hyper obsessively draw Eris more than anything else, because having a lot of OCs is not the way to articulate what's happening. My plant zombies exist in a standalone universe, and so I have an infinite amount of OCs in that capacity. Every plant zombie is an OC in a sense, and it is part of my way of articulating the narrative of that world. But at the same time, there's no consistent design between all of them, right? They're different every time, or they're able to be different every time. I think most of them have short brown hair because that's what I like to draw. I really don't like drawing long hair. I really don't. But I need to do some long-haired plant zombies soon. I really do. I know I do. I tell you that's next on the agenda, but I think I need to redo this sketch. I'm not even done with last week's plant zombie yet. I just got really excited for this one and I couldn't help myself, so I need to finish those next week, guys. If it's not done next week, yell at me, which means you have to subscribe to see more, to yell at me for not doing what I said I'd do. I'm gonna do it. Don't actually hold me to it, but I'm probably gonna do what I said I'm gonna do. But that's kind of a bit more of the desaturation component to the character design and kind of the narrative aspect. I also think that it makes sense if you were to be consumed by a god / taken over by a god as an individual. It makes sense for a lot of your identity in terms of your colors and what stood out about you to kind of fade away and to naturally approach, whether intentionally or not, a middle ground between the two identities, if that makes sense. The blend between Eris as a god and Eris as the person they were, and finding that middle ground. So I like to think that Eris had red hair when they were alive, like vibrant, bright red hair, and their green eyes, and that Eris as a god probably desaturated and pulled away and kind of just took the hair color and replaced it with the hair color of Eris as the goddess, right? And that would have been the white and the ears. So it's like a middle ground between who they were when they were alive, right? And I think that Eris as a goddess, their color palette was predominantly a like purple and white. Yeah, purple and white. I never assigned another color to her, but she probably has one. It's probably a soft pink. I think that kind of encapsulates my envisionment of Eris, maybe a yellow. I don't really like doing a complementary color palette though, so this is a triadic color palette. If I didn't mention that, I'm sure I did, but the green, purple, and red are like all really nice together, and they form a triangle on the color wheel, so they're supposed to go together. I don't know if that's what I was thinking when I designed them, because I usually hate red and green together, but it just made sense for me for some reason. Like, the green eyes just felt natural. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, I think it's something to say about like OC creation, but sometimes your OC just already exists, and they're just waiting for you to kind of like finalize their design in your head. You know, you make some decisions, but I think like deep down, a lot of my OCs, like, they were stewing for so long that by the time I actually told myself I was going to create an OC, I don't really know how much of the decision making came in that moment and how much had just like become second nature in my head. I don't know how to articulate it, and I especially don't know how to articulate it to artists who like don't have OCs, but I'm sure a good handful of artists with OCs can understand, like, you think about your OC so much, they're like your baby. And so when you think of an OC in your head and like they start kind of coming into the edges of your brain, reaching forward and like clinging to your conscious, by the time you actually like come to the paper, they're kind of like ready. like they're half baked, maybe 3/4 baked. You just need to like finish the commitment to them. Like, you just need to turn them over in the oven and let the other side sear a little bit. Like, they're good to go, basically. And I think that's kind of how Eris was for me. Like, they were basically done before I made them, and like mentally speaking. And so I don't really know if when I was like choosing colors, if there was an intention behind it, or if like they kind of like existed in my subconscious and they just kind of came out this way and that's how they stayed. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, I don't think about it consciously in my head. I'm like, oh, what eye color would they have? Like, over time, they just kind of like piece together. Like, you start to picture them more and more, and you like maybe filter through eye colors over time, and then eventually they just kind of one sticks. But I think about making OCs all the time, and I think about character design, and I think about how much I want to work in character design, and I'm thinking about other character designs and how much I like them and analyzing them all the time. So I spend a lot of time thinking about characters, whether they're mine or from media. And so maybe it was just kind of something that I picked up along the way. I was like, oh, I really like how the like red, green, and purple color palette kind of looks together, and this, that, and the other, and it just kind of happened. But I think that the white and the gray are very neutral, and it really allows those brief pops of colors to really just be the key moments for Eris as a character, which I really enjoy, especially from a narrative standpoint and kind of exhibiting emotions as well. So that's my whole spiel about color theory. What even was this about? I have a couple little closing thoughts. I would really appreciate it if you take the time to stick around and listen to both character design and channel wise. So if you have a moment, that would be super cool. But let's start with like the closing thoughts for the sketch. In a minute here, I'm going to pop forward probably like 48 hours into the future because I'm dying and show you guys where I'm at with the sketch piece, the problem child in terms of a traditional standpoint. There's a lot of cleanup I still need to do because of the modeling from these paint pens, and I'm still not sure how I'm going to fix it. So it's going to be really rough when you see it. Let me know if you have any thoughts and opinions for resolving the issue. Secondarily to this crisis, I think I mentioned that the red gray was probably a bad idea. Now, I don't think I actually explained it. The red gray I think was a bad idea because it really makes distinguishing the gray from Beyond the Magic even harder. Like really hard. And the thing is the magic is not supposed to be like super opaque. It's supposed to have a wispy quality to it. And so the lack of transparency, ability to see through, is making it hard to actually distinguish those elements, which is then further impacting the overall clarity. Now, if I'd have gone with a neutral gray, that probably would have been the absolute best because it would have been a completely neutral, so you would have seen it through the hue. To create a little bit of spice, a cool tone probably would have been really, really nice because I think I generally approached a kind of cooler purple. I did have some really warm purples, and then I had that really kind of like bright, warm green color that I plan to use, right? And you'll see how that's coming along. And so having that cool in the background would have been a nice balance between all of it, but a neutral probably would have worked just fine. Another option probably would have been to lay a purple or blue base layer over the gray and then lay over a pretty medium gray. So probably a like CG4 or 5, BG4 or 5, GG4 or 5, something like that. I'm using Ohuhu markers for this, but I generally think in terms of my Copic markers, in terms of like actual colors, because I don't know what GG20 means. I know it's green gray too, but like I don't know why we do GG20. But then like the neutral grays for Ohuhus are like NG03 or NG03, sorry. So like the neutral grays and the warm grays have a completely different like scaling system and writing system than the cool grays, the green grays, the blue grays, and the yellow grays. And I just don't get it. So I just like treat them all as if they're like the NG0 system. Like it just makes more sense to me to kind of try and like unify the whole thing. I don't understand the Copic color numbering system at all whatsoever. I have some Copics that are a lot older than the current sets as well. So to make it extra weird, like the old Copics are like CG04, but like now they're like CG040, just to be weird. And I don't know if that's like all of the colors or if it's like a certain range, because I have all of my sets mixed up as well. So like I'm looking at right now a CG00, a cool gray 20, and then I'm looking at a CG050, which is a, wait a minute. Oh, CG050 is neutral gray 5? What the hell? Why? Why would CG050 not be? And BG050 is cool gray? I'm so confused. Why would cool gray be blue gray? CG be cool gray? Neutral gray? Why would you do this system when cool starts with the letter C? I'm actually irritated right now. I really wish we didn't have this moment together. And then warm gray is a W, but we also have yellow gray, green gray, and red gray. I hate Ohuhu Markers coloring scheme. This is why I stand by Copic's coloring scheme, because like the whole system just makes sense. There's a formula, you follow the formula, your life is good, okay? But I'm having a mental, like, I'm gonna lose my mind over this later, and I don't even have words to articulate the type of like breakdown I'm gonna have going through my entire marker sets for Ohuhu, trying to identify a consistent pattern between the grays, even though I know there's not going to be one, and trying to make myself feel better about it. But we can't think about it right now because I will literally cry, and I have work to do today. I literally have work in a couple minutes, so we're not going to think about it. We need to call these yap sessions because I just do not shut up. But those are primarily my thoughts about the piece. Let me know what you think about how it started, how it's going when you see that. If you've seen it, I don't know yet. Editing rain is not activated yet. And then let me know how you feel about next week's video being me finish this week's piece and last week's piece and seeing those like finished together, or if you want a sketchbook session where I'm just like showing you my doodles for the week and doing my doodles for the week, because I feel like both have potential and room to exist in my channel right now. Like they're both kind of very well fit for existence. But for the most part, I think we're pretty close to done. So thank you so much for sitting all the way through to the end of this video. I know I yapped a lot. I'm always a yapper though. So if you like my yapping and my chatting and my talking and you like drawing alongside me, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I do this literally every week on Saturday. And then like the video if you like it, dislike if you dislike, comment if you have anything you want to say, good or positive, that's cool. If you have anything like constructive criticism, please be polite down in the comments. Please be polite, engaging with each other as well. And I think that's all. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, wherever you are. And with all of this being said, bye-bye.